It's not is it going to become the big thing, it's when.
I believe it will change everything.
I think it's changing the world, it's changing society, it's changing us as a species.
VR technology has absolutely unbounded potential.
It sounds like science fiction, but it's actually science fact. A technology that transports you to an entirely different world without physically going anywhere. But what will happen as it becomes more immersive and more widely accessible?
Someone made a mod for VR, so you can play GTA, Grand Theft Auto, the famous violent game, in VR. And when they played it, they were left with PTSD. It was an actual trauma, because pressing a controller away from your monitor is a whole different experience than being there and actually walking up to a person and shooting them in the face.
This year you may have seen Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One or Channel 4's Kiss Me First. Both portray dystopian worlds where VR has become almost indistinguishable from reality and where people choose to spend most of their time in the virtual world, which leads to negative consequences. Can created the VR world in Kiss Me First and believes that if we aren't careful with it, the societal impact of VR that we see in the fiction may not be so far-fetched.
Unfortunately, that medium is incredibly potent to attract vulnerable people into very dangerous and destructive situations. As the show Kiss Me First tells us, it's a place where you can feel safe and loved and accepted and be more than what you are in your so-called real life. And obviously that in itself is an incredible motivation for everyone, every one of us, to spend as much time in that space as possible.
The question Can brings up is, if VR technology does progress to the point where it really feels like the real world, only you have the ability to do whatever you want and be whoever you want, who would want to continue living in the real world? VR World 2018 seemed like a good place to get some answers, to see how the technology is progressing and to see how people in the industry think it's going to affect our society. Now, I've never used a virtual reality headset before. This is a totally new experience for me, so I'm going to see just how immersive it already is. Go Touch VR aims to heighten the feel of presence and immersion to virtual reality by bringing the sense of touch, which allows people to feel virtual objects and manipulate them. Oh no, come back! Oh, it's like a bouncing ball! Wow, that was amazing. It really felt like it feels like you're like clenching, like your fingers like clenched. It was a really impressive experience, and while Go Touch doesn't believe that VR will ever perfectly simulate the real world, it will be enough to make people want to take refuge in it.
I don't believe that we'll arrive at the moment where we don't distinguish the visual from reality to virtual reality. That's really hard. But we will feel, by being in virtual reality, feel it way more real, that's yes. I believe that touch is one of the key aspects for that, and we are working in that way. But we'll arrive at a level where people are way more comfortable in virtual reality than in reality. That, I believe, is true. I believe we'll prefer to stay there, because it's way easier. You can be what you want, right? You don't need to have your own body, you can choose your own body, and for a lot of people this is really important because they're not comfortable with themselves. So if you're not comfortable with yourself, probably virtual reality has a lot of attraction, right?
It's all well and good to suggest that this might happen, but what evidence is there to suggest that this will actually be a problem?
Well, we have noticed when people have the glasses on for more than a few minutes, they get a little bit disoriented when taking it off. And I also thought about it, what would happen if people kept the glasses on for hours? I think there would be a lot of disorientation, confusion, and maybe also like a blurred line between reality and fiction. I think some people would have difficulty differentiating the two, so you have to be careful. And of course, it's also being used a lot by gamers, and we know that those people already have a little bit of problem in this area, not to stigmatize them, but we have to be mindful of this because our mind, we still don't know exactly how it works, and in our study we are being cautious, only a couple of minutes at a time, taking off the glasses, actually talking to a person, getting them back into reality. That's really important, I think.
However, not everyone thinks it's going to cause a problem.
I think people can get frightened of technology anyway, and I think you actually have to think about what the positives are. So the company that we're working with around training, they do a lot of work in a hospice, and what they do is create bucket list opportunities for people who are dying. So people who wouldn't be able to go to Australia because they're in their last few months of life, being able to have the experience, and you just think, wow, that's how nice that somebody's having that opportunity. And it would be a shame for people to be deprived of those sorts of things because of anxiety about a small group of the population who might become excessively attached to it.
We got the opportunity to try out a piece of virtual reality with a person with motor neurons disease. She'd been diagnosed with motor neurons about 36 years ago, and she had very limited mobility. We were able to give her a bucket list experience, which was she wanted to swim with dolphins. And she said for the first time in 36 years she felt able-bodied. And honestly, when you give someone the opportunity to have a virtual reality experience which is beyond their physical ability, it's incredible.
The suggestion that VR can and is doing good is also strongly felt by Leicestershire Fire and Rescue Service. They've been developing their own award-winning VR experiences for fire trainees, which now has global interest.
So the massive potential this had for training, because it's very difficult to train fire investigators. If you're training breathing apparatus in the virtual world, if it goes wrong, we can press reset, go back to the beginning and do it again, because once you've got the procedure right, then you do the training for real. It's far more beneficial because you're not doing your procedures, your health and safety, because you've done all that in the virtual world in the lead up to your course. And our aim is to make the training so real that when you put a headset on, you don't trick the mind that you're there. Your mind already believes it's there. And if we can achieve that, what we're going to do then is have possibly one of the best training methods, not in the country, but possibly in the world. We've got so many countries watching what we're doing. I could not believe how we are leading, not just nationally, but internationally.
I was lucky enough to have a go on one of the experiences and was pretty blown away by how immersive it was.
Oh wow. You can see your legs as well. It really feels so real because it's sort of just like a film, like a real life film. And the resolution is pretty good as well.
But as well as being used as a great educational tool, Paul recognises there's a potential issue.
People can kind of disassociate themselves with their real life and immerse themselves in a virtual life. And I think there's going to be some challenging times because some people will end up living in the virtual world because it's better than the real world.
It's becoming clear that VR is progressing quickly and is becoming more mainstream, and Vertigo VR demonstrates that. It's an entertainment centre which claims to house all the cutting-edge attractions and applies all the best and latest VR technologies. However, they're not convinced that VR is going to cause the problems that some suggest, for two key reasons.
First, it's a very social experience. It's a social activity as such, so people come in as a group. They enjoy it as a group rather than privacy of their own house. So they have a reason to leave their home in the first place and see their friends and family in real life. Second, it's pretty demanding from the fitness point of view. If you were playing for an hour, trust me, you'd be tired. You'd feel like you've been in the gym for an hour.
So it seems that even the experts are torn over the impact that VR is going to have in the near future. And whether or not you believe that VR has the capacity to become indistinguishable from reality, and whether or not you think it's going to be a good thing or a bad thing, one thing is for sure. You better look out. Because VR is here to stay, and it's only going to get better.